Hi everyone and welcome to a video for day 2 of the 2016 Aintree Grand National Festival. After day 1 I was banging my head against the wall today. I think I racked up about 4 or 5 seconds, but Apple's Jade won very well. I had a feeling she would, and obviously Annie Power was imperious. Dandridge I thought was very unlucky, same with Augusta Kate. There was a lot of bits and bobs there where you think on another day we could have had 4 or 5 winners. Don Polly ran well. That's a great thing. They all seem to run a decent race today. But on to day 2, and fingers crossed, we have another decent day. Day 2 starts with a really competitive 2.5 mile handicap hurdle. Virgilio is interesting because he's a 2-time course and distance winner. He got pulled up at Cheltenham on New Year's Day when I actually quite strongly fancied him. I've just read today that he was wrong after that run. They've given him time to come back. If the going stays soft, which looking outside, there's still bits and bobs of rain, so it could do, then if he bounces back, he must have a good chance, I think, Virgilio. Kiwi is interesting too, because his form is a lot better than the form of the festival. He was only beaten about 5 lengths there. He prefers softer ground than what was at the festival, so at 20 to 1, he's worth a mention because he could run a very big race, I think. Starkitect, as everyone knows, I'm a big fan of this horse. Actually tipped up at the festival when he came a very good 5th. He couldn't get the lead that day, and there was a lot of prominent races, and he was the only one, really, of the prominent ones who did anything of note, to be honest with you. He's very lightly raced. That was only his 2nd run of the season. He came 2nd in the Betfair hurdle, and I do think a little bit more dig in the ground, the better for him. I also think the step up to 2.5 miles is definitely the trick for him as well, and I think he's going to go very close, Starkitect. Tycoon Prince is worth an interest because Gordon Elliott said he could be the next Don Cossack over fences. I don't think he thinks he's as good, but what I mean is he's got to improve. He's not been disgraced in Grade 2 and Grade 3 hurdles in his latest one. He does look an out-and-out stayer, so if there's any improvement in him, then he could go close, though, as I said, I've got a feeling his future may lie over fences. Blazer, I can't weigh up. He came 4th in the Coral, and every time you think he's going to run a good race, he doesn't. When he does, he does. He's one of those frustrating horses. The biggest worry I have with this one, though, is this is going to be, I think, his 6th or 7th run of the season, and you can't keep running these big field races and not have something taken out of it, though he should run a decent race. The one I actually like here is a horse called Mardefu for Warren Greychicks. He's a very progressive horse. He actually beat the really highly regarded Agrapart on his first run back. Now, Agrapart then went and won the Betfair hurdle from like a dozen lengths from Starkitect, who I actually fancy, said he's got a good chance here. He's relatively lightly raced, and on the current ratings, I think he's got a great chance. It's a tough opener, but from a 1, 2, 3, I'm going for Mardefu to beat Starkitect, and I'm going to shove Virgilio in there too. The 2:15 is a Grade 1 novice race, and again is very, very difficult. The horse I'm coming down on the side of here was one I tipped up at Cheltenham, and that is Limini. Obviously won the Mers race there, and also gets a Mers allowance off the rest of the field here, which I think is potentially worth its weight in gold, to be honest with you. She's a class act, seems to go on any ground. Ruby Walsh really, really likes her, and I think she could take some pegging back here, getting all the weight off the boys. Bouvredere brings an interesting form line. Obviously came 3rd in the Supreme Novice Hurdle that day, and did absolutely nothing wrong in defeat. Just bumped into 2, I think, really good horses, and also looks versatile ground-wise. I think it would be a tough between these 2, but I just think with the Mers allowance, that Limini could just shade it on this one. Bull Dark's an interesting one because he's got very progressive form on soft ground, not necessarily at this level, and also we don't know how soft it's going to be tomorrow, but he's worth a mention. And you've got to mention, after I mentioned Mardefu and Starkitect, Agrapart, obviously the winner of the Betfair hurdle. Earlier in the season as well, he was placed behind York Hill, who went and won the Neptune hurdle. So, the form is in the book. The soft ground's ideal. Lizzie Kelly's on board, and it's about 10 to 1, so that's your each way play, I think, on there. But in terms of a 1, 2, 3, I'm happy to go with Limini to beat Bouvredere and then Agrapart. The 2:50 is the 3 mile novice chase, the Mildmay novices. And once again, there's a lot of Cheltenham form here. 2 of the ones in the field, Out Sam and Roi de Frank, both slightly disappointed at the festival, and it's hard to see them figuring here today unless they could have a staggering bounce back, really. Ballyalton is interesting. He rallied really well to win the Close Brothers chase, the handicap over 2.5 mile. But the horse he beat that day, Bouvredere, really let the form down today. He didn't go well out of handicap company. So on Linesby form, Ballyalton, even though he could run well, looks to have it all to do. Black Lion was a really, really game winner of the RSA. This horse seems to have been around for ages, but he takes his racing really well. He seems to go on any ground. He races prominently and he stays. And I think that's everything you need to win these type of chases. He generally jumps well. And yeah, Ryan Happ seems to get on really, really well with him. Untempt Sport 2 is interesting. He was a really, really easy winner of the festival handicap. And more importantly there, he beat Holywell, who's obviously, been placed or pretty much up there in a couple of Gold Cups and was right back to his best. So, that's as good a piece of form. The one problem I've got is, one, this isn't a handicap, and two, the form he needs to hold his own form. In the past, when you've expected him to win, he hasn't, and that's just always the nagging doubt I have with Untempt Sport 2. Native River is the one who's actually interests me a bit more than Untempt Sport 2, because one, he's beaten him earlier in the season, and that's pretty good going, and he also got placed in the 4 miler, which proves he's just got stamina in abundance. He's got everything. He goes on the ground. He's got everything to like about him. The only reason I'm not siding with him is that Black Lion actually holds him on the tout and chase form at Wetherby, and as you know, I always go with the form. So for this one, it's a really tough race. I'm actually going for Black Lion to beat Native River and Untempt Sport 2. 325 is the Melon Chase, and this is all about one horse, and that is Vautour. Everyone knows how much I like this horse. It's an absolute superstar. And even his one loss that he's had in recent seasons was when he went down like ahead by Q Card in the King George. And now that form's been well and truly, Frank. You never know what would have happened in the Gold Cup. He absolutely romped away with the ball today. Basically, if he jumps around, if he stays on his feet, he wins. I think it's as simple as that. Now, looking for the places, Alfroth finished fourth for him in the Ryanair. There's no reason to suggest Alfroth's going to turn the form on him. The other worry I have is with Alfroth, he doesn't take too much racing, and usually by this time of the season, it's like, his form kind of tails off, and he's a bit fragile, so it's hard to see him turning it round. Clarkham and Summersby are both admirable form, especially Summersby ran another great race in the Champion Chase, but I think this is just too much for them. Godzone is consistent, but without threatening to be top class, I think is fair to say. He would need to step up in trip to bring loads of improvement, probably about 3 stone of improvement, and I don't think it is. The one for a forecast, and he's a big price, I'm just seeing he's 20 to 1, and that is Vibratic Valtat for Paul Nichols. He was actually going really, really well in the Ryanair Chase. I've actually behind Vautour when he came down 4 out. He's never tried the 2.5 mile trip before. We'll never know what's going to happen. But he was going well, and it was more a slithering fall than an actual impact fall, because I've looked back at it today. So, providing that hasn't left too much of a scar, I've got a feeling Vibratic Valtat could run a big race there today. It's all about one horse, though, Vautour. So, for the 1, 2, 3, it's Vautour, Vibratic Valtat, and Alfaroff. You can imagine him running on for a bit of place money there. The next one we've got is the Topham over the Grand National fences. Really tough race this, it always is. Willie Mullins has put Turban in again. He was actually beaten when he fell in this last year, but there's one key thing to look at this year. He's only had 2 runs up to now, and last time when Turban fell, he'd already had 5 runs leading up to the race, and he travelled well, and he just tired and then emptied. He jumped the fences pretty well, so at 14 to 1, he could run a lot bigger race than 14 to 1 price would suggest. Benny's Mist loves these fences. He's a Grand Sefton winner, and by the time he was unseated by a loose horse a couple of runs ago, he always runs his race around these Grand National fences, and there's no reason to suggest he won't tomorrow. Rathlin is another one who goes really well over these fences, but he's been doing it without getting home. One day he might get home, but until there's clear evidence, it's always a risky betting prospect. A ridiculously big price if you want to have a punt on something at a huge odd, which often people do in the Grand National. Third Intention. He had a really big turnaround in fortune, tackling the cross-country fences at the festival, and coming to 4 out. Obviously, I was all over any currency, and I actually saw him creeping up the inside and thought, oh, God. You know what I mean? He's absolutely cantering. Ultimately, he didn't stay the 4 mile trip, but it's as if the change of scenery, the change of fences really played to his liking. So if he likes these Grand National fences, and once again, he's back over a trip more of his level, this 40, 50 to 1 price could give you a lot bigger run for your money than you'd anticipate. Village Vic was outclassed by Vautour in the Ryanair, but the one thing about him is he goes hard from the front. He does seem to stay, And the biggest one is he jumps for fun. Now, if he gets into a rhythm out on the front here, he could be very, very tough to peg back. The one I'm actually taking a punt on here, though, just ahead of Village Vic, there's not much between them, is a horse called Killer Crow coming over from Ireland. I've watched back the Irish Grand National. He travelled and jumped supreme until 4 out and then just went bang, dead, went back. Wasn't given a hard time after then. He clearly didn't stay. But the one thing, and even the Racing Post has noted, is how he jumped and travelled that day. Now, provided it's only been 11 days, provided that's not too fast, if he takes the same jump into these Topham fences, Grand National fences and Topham, I think he could take a lot of stopping, and it's 16-1 at the moment in places. He's the bet for me. So my 1, 2, 3 in a really open race again is Killer Crow from Village Vic and Benny's Mist. The 440 is a very tough race, the Sefton Novice Hurdle, with all sorts of bits of form to look at. Baule de la Roque came 5th in the Coral, staying on from nowhere. So this step up in trip looks to be ideal. He's versatile outside of, he doesn't just need good ground, he can have heavy, soft, good to soft. He seems to be quite versatile. The worry you have is he's stepping out of a handicap against some interesting horses here. So will he be good enough? I think he could be. That's my feeling on this one, because a lot of these are stepping out of handicaps. Bell's Hill found things just happening far too fast for him in the Supreme. I think the ground was too fast for him. I think the 2 mile was too sharp for him. But his earlier form over 2.5 mile on soft, he was winning quite comfortably group races. So the group race form is actually in with Bell's Hill. It's just a case of if it's going to be heavy enough. And as the rain keeps coming down behind, it's more playing into his favour. But it's saying good to soft on the hurdles, which I still don't think is heavy enough. Tom and Jerry, great name horses, unbeaten, improving. But is he improving fast enough against some of these tried and tested horses? That's the question. Ballyoptic is improving. But again, like Bell's Hill, the difference is with him, he's only ever done anything on heavy, not even soft, heavy, and I don't think it's going to be that heavy tomorrow, but he could run a good race. Ballydine is the one I look here at Balladine. He pushed Barter's Hill all the way at Doncaster last time out for him. Barter's Hill then ran, I just can't believe he didn't get placed, and I think with a better ride by David Bass, he would have at least come in the first 3 in the Albert Bartlett. Especially after the last, he got headed. I think the going had gone against him as well, and he just ran into the back of another horse and then tried to switch. The whole thing was just a bit bizarre, to be honest with you. But that form, I think, is the hardest form in the book, and that's why it's just Ballydine for me ahead of Baulo de la Roque. It's a really tough race, so it's Ballydine from Baulo de la Roque and Bell's Hill. And then the final race, is it of the day? Have we got? Yep, it's the final race of the day, is the 2 mile bumper, which is basically, in many ways, a rematch from the champion bumper. Now, Augusta Kate just got touched off by a neck half a length today, so for me, that's actually quite nicely franked the champion bumper form, because she'd had quite a tough season, and those front 2 pulled a long way clear of the rest. So I think that form is actually pretty good. Ballyandy obviously won, and Augusta Kate, as I said, gone a long way to frank that form. The problem with Ballyandy is he's now got a £4 penalty over the rest. And I just wonder, after such a tough race, is that going to take him out of it? Also, he's back onto softer ground, and the one time he's won on soft, but he's also been beaten on the softer ground. So that's a bit of a worry. If you're back in Ballyandy, you want the ground to be drying out. Battleford, everyone knows, I put a word in for this at 25-1. He just got touched off in the bumper. He came second to Ballyandy by literally a nose. He's got a £4 pull in the weights, and he's a better horse on soft ground based on his point form. I think with the softer ground plus the £4 pull, I think Battleford might just turn this on Ballyandy. Bacardi's, people are saying in the Racing Post, is the second string for the Mullins yard, but I disagree, because they're saying Ruby's not riding it, but Patrick Mullins often gets the pick, especially on the bumper horses, so he's picked this. He was third in the bumper. He wasn't far behind the rest of them. Ruby actually rode Bacardi's that day in the bumper, while Patrick Mullins was on Battleford. That was another reason I kind of thought, he's got a chance there. So Bacardi's, there's nothing to go against him. He got all the conditions the same as Battleford and Ballyandy. I'm just thinking Battleford beat him that day, so it's who's come out the race the best, so I'm going to stick with Battleford there. Bigger price ones are worth looking at here. Utility for John Joe O'Neill is interesting because he was so impressive on his debut at Uttoxeter. John Joe O'Neill's quote in the Racing Post yesterday, he could be anything. The problem is the form of his bumper win has been let down. So while that horse might be better than average, it might not be. So you just don't know, really. Rodney Trotter, go back a few runs ago, was actually second to Ballyandy and only beaten 2 lengths. He then won next time, and then we didn't see him again. He's fresh. and he's 33 to 1 Rodney Trotter. So for a horse that only got beaten 2.5 lengths by Ballyandy, bearing in mind Battleford and Bacardi's only got beaten similar distances and are around 3 to 1 and 5 to 1, the 33 to 1 on Rodney Trotter could be a huge price. I'll also mention as well for Pride of Lacali, he actually came 13th, and it seems nothing in the champion bumper, but he was only beaten 7 lengths as he finished in a bunch behind. This horse had over-exaggerated weighted tactics. He was basically last with 5 furlongs to go. And you watch him, he was getting pumped all the way down the hill. He got pumped up the hill into contention, and it was only the last furlong did he break. I don't think they're gonna hold him up as much this time, and he could outrun his price. He's about 40 to 1, Matt. So once again, if you're looking for something at a big price, Pride of Lacali could be the one. But I'm sticking with the form, and on this, I'm actually doing a reverse tricast as well, because sometimes I do crazy things like that. But I'm going for 1, 2, 3, Battleford to be Ballyandy and Bacardi's. Anyway, I hope we get some more winners than we got seconds today. We still got a couple of winners, but we need some more. Tomorrow I'll be doing a video for obviously the Grand National itself and also the rest of Saturday. As always, post any comments you have, any horses you've been backing, what you think's run well today, what you fancy, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.